Okay, so we are looking at corporate finance. This course sometimes is called financial management. So in this course, by the time we're done, you should be able to understand what the role of a financial manager is. It is one course that entitles each one of you to be called a financial manager. We need to describe what financial management is all about and the 4 key decisions that financial managers make. We must also understand the goal of the shareholders in here, which will be wealth maximization. We also want to discuss a few problems that arise when management incorporates our business. There are certain problems that are attached to a business. We're also going to look at the structures of a business, sole trader companies and corporations, like we learned in our financial accounting, the types of businesses. So quickly, we will start by understanding the role of financial management and the goal of a firm, in corporate governance, and the forms of organizations. To start with, financial management can simply be defined as the management of finances of an organization in order to achieve financial objectives of the organization. It is mainly concerned with the following: acquisition, financing, management of assets with the same goal in mind. So as part of financial management or corporate finance, we're also going to have a few financial accounting skills. You need to understand how to analyze a financial statement to interpret the ratios, which will be, for some of you, the first assignment you're going to have to interpreting the ratios. So the goals of financial management basically will be categorized in 4 key decisions. First being making what are called investment decisions. Secondly, we have what we call financing decisions, then dividend policy decisions and asset management decisions. So what are investment decisions? When we're dealing with investment decisions, we're looking at the decisions that financial managers will make in ascertaining what returns the shareholders expect from an investment, the risks associated with the investment, and the time factors. So an investment by definition is simply the commitment of funds now in expectation of a return in future at an interest. That sacrifice of an interest is what we call a discount interest rate. So we're going to talk about the different types of interest rates that these financial managers will consider. What we call the effective annual rate, annual percentage rates, the discount rates, so that they could make decisions that will enable the business benefit. So we have 2 key categories that we're going to analyze: the owners of the business, who are called the shareholders, and the people running these businesses, who are called the managers. So the other decisions that we should consider are financing decisions. So these are decisions that will determine how the businesses will be financed. We know a business can be financed through debt, capital, equity, retained earnings. And so a good financial manager must ascertain the best type of financing in terms of short-term financing. Should also ascertain the best financing mix, because we're going to eventually look at what we call the weighted cost of capital, which looks at the different financing mixes that are there. And of course, each of these financing decisions will have a cost. So you as a financial manager, you need to look at the cost effective or the most appropriate at that point, and also how the funds will physically be acquired. So you must also understand that the owners of the business usually live in antagonism with the runners of the businesses, who are the managers. As much as the owners, who are the shareholders, want to have a return, which is called a dividend, the managers of the business would want to use internal capital, which are called retained earnings. And so these decisions will now need to be made for the best interest of the company, We also have what we call our dividend policy decisions. We know that the shareholders are interested in dividends. A dividend is simply a return on a share. And so they would want to ascertain the best dividend policy. For instance, the dividend payout ratio. The retained earnings is a cheaper source of finances because we know it has no interest attached to it. And so most of the managers would want to go for the retained earnings because there's no cost at all. So a dividend policy has an effect on the behavior of the shareholders. So finally, the asset management decisions look at how efficient or effective the managers are using the assets. So there's greater emphasis on a particular ratio, which is called the efficiency ratio. How are the managers using these particular assets to generate excess sales? So these are very cardinal. So you need to have some financial information to analyze all these. So basically, this is what our first introductory chapter is all about. Then we look at our second chapter, which looks at what is called the financial environment. So in this chapter, we're basically looking at the forms of organizations that are there, understanding also the types of financial systems that are there, the markets that are there. So to start with, from our financial accounting, we understand that there are three basic forms of businesses, which are the sole proprietorships, the partnerships, and the limited companies. Now, can I ask, can you briefly tell me anything you remember about sole proprietorship, advantages and disadvantages where possible, and partnerships, then limited companies? Tell me about the sole proprietorship.
For a sole proprietor, I can go ahead.
So I can go ahead.
Yes. So for a sole proprietor, what I remember is it's owned and it's owned by one person. And the advantages is all the profits go to one person because there's only one owner. And the disadvantage, and it's got, is it unlimited liability? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, yeah. And then disadvantages is continuity is almost impossible if the owner dies. And yeah, what else? Yeah. Then on a partnership, it's owned by more than one person, so it can be two, but not more than 10. And then so the partners are supposed to come up with a partnership agreement, and then advantages is it's easier to source finance because you can just invite more partners. And then I also remember, what else can I remember about partnerships? Yeah, I think that's what I can remember about partnerships. And then corporations, well, these it's like they can be dealt with as a person. They are allowed to, a corporation is allowed to own property. It can sue, it can be sued. It's good. Yeah, it's easier to raise finance. You can just issue out shares. And what else? Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, that's excellent. Anyone who wants to add on what she said? So basically, she's almost summarized everything. So we need to understand the theoretical part of it. One-man business is a sole proprietor. These ones have unlimited liability for all the debts that a firm may have. So this means on the characteristics, they only account for one type of tax, which is called personal income tax. The advantages come in their simplicity and easy setup. Quick setup and profits are enjoyed by an individual. There's less tension because all the decisions are made by a particular individual. Disadvantages being unlimited liability and being hard to raise finance. A transfer of ownership difficulties, a disadvantage, and the life of business is tied to the life of the owner. Upon his death implies the death of the business structure, the business name. Partnership, 2 or more may act as owners. For professionals, it's up to 20, like accountants and lawyers, as she mentioned. And these ones, they also pay what is called personal income tax. So we have 2 types of partners, having general and limited partners. General, these ones have unlimited liability and also are liable for the obligations to the partnership, whereas limited are only limited to as much as an investment only because they're not active partners. All right. So limited partners, we are subjected to a salary. They come up with what is called a partnership deed, can be verbal or written. Advantages is that it's also simple and easy to set up, quick, and also has a limited liability for the limited partners, which is an advantage. These ones will come together and pool skill, they pool knowledge, they also pool resources together. Disadvantage is that unlimited liability occurs for the general partner, and it's elusive to raise additional capital, but easier for a sole proprietor. Transfer of ownership is difficult. Upon joining or leaving, the partnership dissolves. Conflict is possible where personal clashes will affect the progress of the partnership. It's a disadvantage of share profits. We are known to be individuals who are selfish, so to enjoy all the profit is an advantage. To share is a disadvantage. A company or corporation formed under Cap 388 of Zambia brings about a limited company. It's an individual being which is born. This being can be sued and can sue, assumes personality, and this pays not only income tax, but also corporate tax. Disadvantages are that they have double taxation. Also disadvantage because it is elusive and costly to set up, and the profits are shared. Advantages, if they have limited liability, transfer of ownership is an advantage because anyone can join, except that even competitors can join. Advantage also is that it has unlimited lifespan and it is easier to raise huge sums of money. So this is important for you to know because it will bring us to a unit which we're going to call valuation of stock, where we're going to go in depth to discuss these types of owners who are either preferred stock, common stock owners, and how they calculate their dividends. Are we together so far? So this takes us to another important concept, which we call time value of money. Time is money, and we must also appreciate the fact that this time that is spent must be equated to a monetary value. So we're going to look at time value of money and understand the relationships that exist between the present and the future value, and also describe the computations in terms of the discount, present value interest factors, the future value interest factors. We're also going to discuss the annuity factors and how to calculate these, and also tailor it to the test that some of you wrote. We're also going to look at loan amortization and what it's all about. So I spoke of the different types of interest rates. We're going to look at simple interest, compound interest, effective annual interest rate, and how these ones are used in computing the future values or the present values. So we'll start with what is called our simple interest rate. So, like I said, time is important because it gives us what is called opportunity cost, which we have, or we call it a sacrifice, which we call interest. So under simple interest, we're simply going to calculate what is called an arithmetic progression. And compound interest, we're going to look at what is called a geometric progression. So simple interest in simple terms is simply interest based on what you started with, the principal. So we're going to look at key terms as follows. The original amount that we borrowed or that we lent out is called a principal. So we're going to compute our simple interest as follows. Simple interest is equal to PTR. So P stands for the money we have now, time in years, and the interest rate as a percentage. Compound interest is simply the difference between the future value and the present value. Now, this is one of the fundamental topics in corporate finance because all the other topics hinge on this. So to compound is simply to add or earn interest. So we have the following types of compoundings. We have an annual compounding, means we're earning interest how many times? Once a year. We have a semi-annual compounding, means we're earning interest how many times a year? Twice a year. We have a quarterly compounding, which is an interest that is earned or accrued 4 times a year. We have monthly compoundings, which is 12 times. We also have daily compounding, which is 365, unless otherwise stipulated. So this will help us calculate a special type of interest rate, which is called the effective annual rate. So this effective annual rate, we'll learn how to calculate it, but it's simply given by this formula. It gives us a real interest rate, which is earned or charged on an investment. So, like I said, we're going to learn how to use the tables, which are called financial tables, and also how to do the computations manually. So you have 1,000 kwacha now. This 1,000 kwacha has an interest rate of 8%. And the time we have is 5 years. So we want to calculate our simple interest. Who remembers the formula of simple interest?
P times T times R.
And PTR. So what is our principal? What is our P?
1,000.
1,000. What is our time?
5.
5 years. And what is our interest rate?
8%.
8%, which is 0.08. Are we together? So our simple interest that will be in how much? 1,000 times 5 times 0.08, which is 400. So 400 is simply the simple interest. So how much value are we going to have after 5 years? The future value under simple interest. The 1,000 plus what? The interest
400.
is 400. So what is the total value we're going to have?
1,400.
1,400. So this is a simple interest rate. So under simple interest, we're going to compare which one is more viable. So let's go to, so we've earned a 400 kwacha interest. let's go to compound interest. So compound interest, we say it is a future value minus the present value. And our future value has its own formula. The present value is the money we start with. So if it's compounded annually that we're talking about, we're simply going to use the general formula or the annual formula, which is simply the present value, 1 plus r to the power time. So what is our present value in this case? The money we started with, what is our present value? 1,000. The same question here, 1,000. All right. Then what is our R, our interest rate? 8%, which is 0.08. And our time?
5.
5 years. So meaning we're going to have 1,000 and 1.05, 1.08 to the power 5. So this will give us what? Power 5 times 1,000. It gives us 1469. So meaning our interest here, what is the compound interest? The future value minus the present value. So what becomes the difference between these two? 1,000 from 1469 will give us what? 433. So this is our future value, which is 1469, but the interest here we're getting is 460 what? 469. So if you're going to compare these two, which one is giving you a higher interest? The compound interest. Now, you must understand that whenever we're compounding more than once, the interest rate will suffer division. Whenever we're compounding more than once, the time will multiply. So in this case here, we have what? The question where we're given the present value, which is 1,000. The same, we have time, which is 5. And also we have what? The interest rate, which is 8%. Now, one thing you also need to know is that the more we compound, the higher the figure. So suppose we are asked that to calculate the future value if it's compounded semi-annually, if it's also compounded quarterly, if it's compounded daily, or daily, and also if it's compounded continuously. So if you're compounding more than once, you have a general formula for compound interest, which is given by future value is equal to present value, 1 plus R over M. Then here M times T. Who remembers, if it's semi-annually, how many times are we earning interest in a year?
Twice.
Twice. Good. Quarterly?
4 times.
4 times. Daily?
365.
Weekly?
52.
And continuously? PVERT. Okay, so semi-annually, what will become our future value? We're going to have 1,000 here. Then 1 plus the interest rate is what? 8%, 0.08. It's semi, so we're going to divide by 2. And these 2 will come here again. At the time was 5. So in this case, we're going to have what? 1,000, 1.04 to the power the power 10. All right. So what are we getting when you compute this? So you use your calculator. You need to be very careful as you're doing a computation so that you don't affect your answers negatively. So one thing you also need to understand is that the more you compound, the higher the figure. The more you compound, the higher the figure. So in this case, we're going to have 1.04 to the power 10 times 1000. We're going to get 1480. That is the amount we're getting there, 1480 kwacha. Quarterly, who wants to lead us through quarterly? What will be the computation? What do we write here? Future value is equal to what? $1,000.
It will be future. Yes, 1000, open brackets, 1 plus 0.8, 0.08 over 4.
Correct, because it's quarterly.
Brackets,
4
multiplied by 5.
All right. So you're going to have 1000, then 1.02 to the power what? 20. 1.02 to the power 20 times 1000. We're going to get 1460. Our final answer will be 1460. So you're seeing the more we compound, the higher the figure. 1486, sorry. 1486. So under the same compounding, can somebody remind us, how do we find the effective annual rate if it's compounded quarterly? How do we find the effective annual rate? Who remembers the formula? Effective annual rate if it's compounded.
Open bracket, 1 plus R over M. Close bracket to the power M minus 1.
Correct. The mistake people make is to add a T there. So quarterly becomes 1 plus R, which is 0.08. Quarterly is 4. Then here we're going to have a 4 minus 1. So this will be 1.02 to the power 4. Then subtract the 1 there. 1.02 to the power 4 minus 1. We're going to have 8.24%. That becomes our effective annual rate, 8.24%. So this is a real interest rate that will actually be earned. Okay. And lastly, if we're looking at what? Daily, continuously. Future value is equal to what? Present value, ERT. So we're talking about 1000. E is on a calculator. Our interest rate is 8%, so 0.08. And our time is what? 5 years. Do we know where to find the E on the calculator? We should know by now. 0.08 times what? 5. 0.4. So shift ln 0.4, then times 1000. It will give us an answer, which is what? 1492. All together? 1492. The more you compound, the higher the figure. So I want to take you to the test that you wrote, but before I go there, maybe let me fortify on the others. So sometimes a question can come, how long will 1,000 kwacha? How long will 1,000 kwacha triple? So triple means what? Times 3. So meaning, how long will 1,000 kwacha triple? They will hide some information. So tripling, meaning our future value becomes what? 3,000. How long will 1,000 kwacha triple? At an interest rate of 15% compounded annually. So in this case, they're looking for how long. How long is what? Time. The annual compounding is given by future value is equal to present value, 1 plus R to the power time. So our future value is 3,000. Our present value is 1,000. Our interest rate is 15%. And our time, we don't know. So we divide both sides by 1,000 kwacha so that we have a 3 on this end, because this will cancel. And we need to find a way of finding our t to be subject. The only way we can do that is by introducing a log. So here we're going to have log 3. We're going to have log what? 1.15. So it is only the log that will cause this t to fall down. So this t, when it falls down, we're going to have t times log what? 1.15. So to calculate for t, we're going to divide both sides by 1.15. So log 3 divided by 1.15. So will give us what? The value for our time. Are we following? Have I lost anyone?
Following.
Yes, please. We are following. All right. So 7.86. That is the time to take. All right. Now, on the other hand, at what rate will 1,000 kwacha double? So meaning that's the sentence. What is our future value? At what rate will 1,000 kwacha double? So to double is to do what? To multiply by 2. So meaning our future value will be 2,000. At what rate will 1,000 kwacha double? In 4 years. So what are they asking for? Our R, if compounded annually. So if the annual formula is straightforward, it is simply future value is equal to present value, 1 plus R, the power time. So here we have what? A 2,000. Here we have what? A 1,000. The interest rate we don't have. But the time we've been given is 4 years. So we divide both sides by 1,000. Then we have a 2 at the end. So to find our R, which is protected by the brackets, we need to remove this power. So we have an invisible 1 there. To get rid of this 4, we find the reciprocal. If there was a 5 there, we would have done 1 over 5. Since there's a 4 there, we'll do 1 over 4. So 1 over 4, you do 2 to the power 1 over 4, or you just convert it in decimal. 1 over 4 is 0.25. So when you go on a calculator, you just punch 2 to the power 0.25. It will give you 1.1892. So when you take the error this side to subtract, our interest rate will simply be 18.92%. So this is the interest rate it will take for 1,000 kwacha to double in a period of 4 years. So we're actually simply manipulating the formulas. Are we following?
Yes.
And finally, Marcel wants to raise school fees at Unilas. The school fees are currently at 11,000. And he wants to deposit it in a bank that will give him an interest rate of 13% compounded annually for a period of 4 years. How much must he deposit now? Well, now we're looking at the present value. So we know that using the annual formula, our formula is simply as follows. So we're looking for the present value. So the future value, how much he wants to raise is 11,000. How much he must deposit now, he doesn't know. That's what we want to create for him. The interest rate is 13%, and the time is looking at is 4 years. So to find our present value, we divide both sides. 11,000 divided by 13% under 4 years. So this present value must obviously be smaller than the future value. So he will need to deposit 6,746.51. So if he deposits that, he can just sit and relax. This amount will grow because of the time value of money. Now, it takes us to another key point which we need to learn, which is called an annuity. An annuity is simply a series of equal periodic payments that are made either at the beginning of the period or at the end of the period. If it's at the beginning of a period, we call that what? An annuity due. If it's at the end of a period, it is called an ordinary annuity. Annuities will occur in different ways. We have examples of annuities. We have rentals, which are paid at the beginning, that is an annuity due. We have what? Insurance, which is paid quarterly, annuity due. Mortgage payments, loan repayments, these are different types of annuities. So if you're making a series of periodic payments, so we have two types of ordinary annuities. We have what we call our present value annuity, and we have what we call the future value of an annuity. And the present value annuity has its own table, future value has its own table. Similarly, we have a present value annuity due and a future value annuity due. So let me elaborate. Marcy has 1,000 kwacha now. He wants to deposit it in an account for 3 years. This account will give him what? 10%. And he'll be making these amounts every end of the period. Already the word end of the period gives you the notion to say this is the future value of an annuity. I can do this in 3 ways. Number 1, $1,000, $1,000, $1,000. So how much will he have at the end of 3 years? So now, ideally, he's been depositing 1,000 at the end of the year. So we know the future value of the normal future value formula is simply what? Present value 1 plus R to the power time. So If there's no interest rate, he could still have a 3,000 at the end, but because there's interest, each of these ones will earn an interest, except this one here. So this one here, using this formula, it will be 1,000, 1.10, since it's 10%, it's staying 2 years there. If you compute that, you're going to get 121. This one in year 2, if we're going to use this formula here, we're going to have 1,000, 1.10. It's saying how many years? Until the end of year 3, that's 1 year. So we're going to have what? 1,100. This one here, since it's given at the end of the year, 1.10 to the power 0. This one will still remain the same. It does not accrue any interest. So when you total up these, what we're going to get is called a future value of an annuity. So this will give you 310. This is the future value of an annuity. Okay. Now, we can also calculate the future value of an annuity using a formula. This is called the future value annuity formula. So we're going to have 1 plus R to the power N minus 1 over R. So the periodic payment that Marcia has been depositing is 1,000. Then the interest rate is 10%. N is the period, which is 3 years, minus 1. The interest is simply 10%. When you compute that, you can get it as 3.31. So our future value annuity is therefore going to be 8310. So we can use even our computation. At this point, I'll ask for questions if there are any. Am I a little bit fast? Have I left anyone behind? The other way will be perhaps to use a table. The future value of an annuity will be the payment. Then here we're going to have the future value interest factor, the rate against the time. The table should have an A there. So we'll have 1,000 here, the future value interest annuity, 10%, 3. So this, if you're going to check in the table, will be 3.310, which will be what? 310. I had mentioned on how to read the tables. So for those of you who may not have had that opportunity, let me check on the tables so that we see how we can read this. So you're usually given these tables at the end of every paper. So be careful to ensure that you are reading the right table. This is a present value interest factor, future value interest factor. Okay. So this is not what we're going to. So future value interest factor annuity. So we got 10% under 3 years, a period of 3. Okay. So you see it's 3.31. So this is 3.31 that we're using here in the table. Are we together?
Yes.
So the table is the easiest way, although I don't like it because it makes you lazy. it is also dangerous because sometimes you're given 10.3, you're not find it on that table. So suppose Mwase has been receiving rentals 1,000 kwacha. He's supposed to receive rentals 1,000 kwacha in year 1, 1,000 kwacha in year 2, 1,000 kwacha in year 3. But he's broke and he needs the money now. So he will give the tenants pressure to say, I want the money now, instead of me waiting. So they will calculate for him to say, okay, since you want the money now, we also understand time value of money. Obviously, we can't give you a 3,000 kwacha because we're going to discount it. So now that is now called present value annuity. How much money we're going to have now? Of course, the series of payments is the same, but we're going to discount each one of these ones where backwards. Our interest rate is still at 10%. Period of time is 3 years. So we're going to simply divide. The way we're calculating our NPV, 10%, 1,000 here, over 1.1 to the power 2. 1,000 here, over 1.1 to the power 3. So you keep calculating for each of these ones. So when you calculate that for the first year, it will give you 909. For the second year, it will give you 680, 826. For the third year, it will give you 751. Then when you add these ones, 909 plus 826 plus 751, 2486. Okay. 2486, 2487, somewhere there. So they will now tell you to say, instead of getting a 3,000, you're going to lose some amount there because it's now present value. So this is using the number line. Using the formula, we have what we call present value annuity. It is simply the periodic payment. And then here we have 1 minus, you need to take note of the formulas. 1 plus R to the power negative N over R. Okay. For the future, who remembers what's the formula for the future value annuity? Just that we differentiate them. Yes, Kwangu. 1 plus what? R, the power positive N minus 1 over R. So you see that these ones have a slight difference. The present value has a negative, but it's at the end. The future value has a positive exponent, but it's at the beginning. So here we're going to have what? 1,000 for 1 minus 1.10 to the power negative 3 over 10%. So this will give us 1,000, 2.486. So this will give us 2486. So this is the amount we're getting, the same value. All right, 2486. Are we together so far? Before I proceed, are we following? All right. The other alternative would now be to use our table. So the present value of an annuity is equal to the payment. And here we have the present value interest annuity the interest rate against the time. So here we have 1,000. What is our interest rate? 10%, and the time 3. So I taught you how to read on the tables. So we go to the present value, annuity, 10% under 3. We have 2.486, 2.487, like I was saying, being running off. So here, 2.486 or 7, which is simply the same answer that we're getting here. So this becomes our present value annuity. Now, summarize what we just have found. So we have the present value annuity, 24.87. We have the future value of an annuity. It was 33.10. When we multiply this by 1 plus R, it becomes what? An annuity due. So this one becomes the present value annuity due. So just multiply by 1 R. Here just multiply 1 times R. This becomes the future value annuity due. So 24.87 times 1.10. You are going to get 27.36. And here, 33.10 times 1.10, we're going to get 36.41. So these ones are called annuity due. A quick, can you remember? I have 10 questions for you, just on what has been discussed. Question number 1. A series of equal payments that is made at the end of each period is called what? A series of equal payments that is made at the end of each period is called what?
An ordinary annuity.
Yes, an ordinary annuity. So we have present value ordinary annuity and a future value ordinary annuity. If it's paid at the beginning of a period, what is it called?
Annuity due.
It is called an annuity due. Excellent. Question number 2. We have a particular interest rate, which is called the effective annual rate. What does it measure? The effective annual rate, what does it measure? What is an effective annual rate? And perhaps give me the formula. What is an effective annual rate? This is a real return on a savings account or interest-paying investment. It is a real return on a savings account that is actually earned, or it is simply any interest-paying investment that is actually paid when we're taking what? Compounding into consideration. What is the formula for effective annual rate? What is the formula for effective annual rate?
1 plus R over M.
1 plus R over M.
Close brackets to the power M minus 1.
M minus 1. Okay, correct. All right. Question number 3. A plan that is set up to repay a loan is called what? a process or a plan that is put in place to reduce a loan or a debt using regular payments is called what?
Loan amortization schedule.
Yes, it's called amortization. Excellent. I mentioned that. Amortization is a plan that is put in place to reduce a debt using regular payments. So to amortize a loan, we usually use a present value. So Moise has a loan of 1,000 and the interest rate is 10%. The same period of time of 3 years. Compounded annually. Number one, we need to calculate Moise's what? Periodic payment. Number two, we need to also amortize his loan. So let's calculate the periodic payment that Moise has to be paying every what? Every year. So we usually use a present value annuity table. So the loan that Moise has is 1,000. The payment is what we want to calculate. Present value interest annuity factor is 10% for 3 years. When we check in the table, we calculated 10% for 3 years. Who remembers the value? Hope you know how to read it. 2.487. We said you go to the annuity table, present value, 10% under 3, 2.4869007. So how much will you be paying every particular year's periodic payment? So 1,000 divided by 2.487. So the periodic payment that we'll be having will be 402. At this point, are we together so far? We want to learn how to set up an amortization schedule. So now we go to the amortization schedule. How does the amortization schedule look like? We want to set up a plan. So I'm going to give you a very basic way of doing it. Number one, we'll start with the balance, beginning balance. Okay, then we'll go to number two, the periodic payment. Number three, interest. Number four, the repayment. How much has been repaid? And number five, closing balance. So Moise had a balance of 1,000 and we've already calculated the periodic payment to be what? 402 throughout. So in a period of 4 years, we're paying 402 as a, right? So we can call this column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, and column 5. So to find the interest, which is 10%, how do you find it? Simply the interest rate times column 1. So 10% of 1,000 is 100. Then to find column 4, we simply subtract column 2 minus column 3. So 402 minus 100, 302. And to find column 5, we simply subtract column 1 minus column 4. So 1000 minus 302. What we get? 698. So this becomes the opening balance here, 698. So column 1 is simply column what? 5 brought down. Now I want you to help me go to column what? Column 3. How do we get column 3?
We multiply 698 by 10%.
10%, excellent, which is 69.8. Then how do we get column 4? How do we get column 4?
We subtract column 3 from column 2.
All right. We subtract 402 minus 69.8 to get what? 332.2. Then how do we get the closing balance?
We subtract C4 from C1.
Okay, which gives us 365.8. And where do we take this? 365.8, where do we take it?
Column 1.
As the opening balance, right?
Yes.
Yes. Then what do we do to this opening balance?
We multiply it by 10%
The
to get the interest.
10%, correct, which is what? 86.58. Then what we do to get this column here? We subtract 402 minus 36.58. We get 365. Then when you subtract this minus that, you get a dash here, meaning we would have paid our loan completely. So this is what we call loan amortization. Now, this last part here may not necessarily always be 0, it may be a small value, just to show you that you have fully paid off your loan. So this is what we call loan amortization. This is what we call loan amortization. Any questions? Are we following?
The last one, Collins, it's 365.42. Is it a rounding off issue?
Yeah, I just put it to the actual one is 0.42. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. It's fine.
And if you subtract it, it will be something very small.
Okay.
Okay, so this is how we amortize a loan. Any other questions?
There's one schedule on annuities. I think that I didn't. I got cut off, so I don't know what was happening there. I don't know if you're able to go back where we had the present value 2487, and then we had another column where we had put I think X.
This
X, yeah, yes, this one. I didn't know what was happening there.
Okay, so this one was simply giving you a relationship between an annuity, ordinary annuity, and an annuity due. So ordinary annuity, when you multiply it by 1.1 plus R, it now becomes an annuity due. As simple as that. So if you have your ordinary annuity, 2487, just multiply 1 plus R. If your interest rate is 8%, you multiply by 1.08, it becomes present value annuity due. So just multiply 1 plus R becomes annuity due. Very good question. Is that clear?
Yeah, that's clear. It's fine.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. That being the case, we'll quickly the test that was done, I don't know whether there was also this component. So maybe let me broadcast it. Let me just show it up so that we can appreciate. Okay, so if we look at the test, we had a component that had a time value, links, and bond valuation, that an annuity. And this is the question here. Okay. So what is expected value of the apartment in 20 years? The question is, if you know the solution wishes to purchase an apartment in Kablonga, which is situated in a tree-lined venue. The purchase price has a cost of 710 and is able to obtain 100% mortgage loan at an interest of 6%. Interest is compounded monthly. The term of the loan is 20 years. So this is a period of time, 20 years. And we're also told that the property values are expected to rise at 9% per year. So meaning 0.75 per month. So FinoZ Solutions will be able to rent out the apartment after the cost at a rate of 4,000 per month for the first year. The interest rates are payable at the beginning of each month. This is my interest. So there were other rates that were put here that were just meant to confuse you. But our issue here was to do with the interest that had the mortgage, because other interests were not touching the mortgage. So I want you to go through this solution that I sent to you. Because of time, we'll discuss it in the next class. But these are questions that I want you to look at. Our next session will be on Thursday. So we'll look at bond valuation. So questions to do with such are tricky. I need to understand every bit of what I explained. So I sent this, I think, on the group. Please go through it, including the handwritten copy.